Hello horror movie lovers, I'm Trenton and I love movies just like you, obviously. So I watched The Puppet Man because the poster is fire as I didn't really have any expectations going in. I went in completely blind for the most part. To be honest, I really liked the poster and saw that the movie was on Shudder, so I just took a shot in the dark and gave the movie a chance. But did the movie meet my expectations? Yes and no. The movie was bad, but entertaining and funny bad.
So everyone's entitled to one good scare.
The Puppet Man, a convicted killer on death row, always maintained his innocence, saying that it was an evil force controlling his body as he slaughtered his victims. Now Michael, the killer's daughter, begins to suspect that there may be some truth to her father's claims when those around her begin to die in brutal ways. She must try to break the curse of the Puppet Man before all of her loved ones are killed. The first fourth of this video will be spoiler free, then the last 3/4 will contain spoilers. Don't worry, I will give you a warning before we enter spoiler territory. The characters were flat as hell. I feel like I've been saying that a lot recently, but that's just been the case with a lot of these movies I've been watching lately. It's like these writers mainly focus on every other aspect of the movie first and then the characters last, when it should be the other way around. Michael, our main character, was just bland. She wasn't interesting at all, and it's annoying because they set up this somewhat unique aspect to her character and I feel they just executed it poorly. Her acting was fine, but what she was given to work with was underwhelming. Danny, Charlie, Glenn, and Joe, the friend group, were also bland. I will say that I hated Glenn's character, which is the whole point of his character. He is so annoying. It's not even funny. And I like Joe's character. She was pretty cool, but pretty much everyone else in the movie I didn't feel anything towards. The story was conceptually interesting. The whole concept of an entity taking over your body and making you do something you don't want to is scary as but the execution wasn't as good as the concept itself. I was intrigued by the story for the most part, but as the movie progressed, I was getting more and more uninterested. The writing was okay for the most part. There are some inconsistencies with the rules that we're trying to create regarding the Puppet Man and how he works, but the writing wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be, though I wasn't really a fan of the ending, but I'll specify why that is in the spoiler section. The cinematography was surprisingly pretty good, not unique or anything necessarily special, but the movie was competently made and looked professional. The movie is dark visually, but not dark to the point of unrecognition, more like dim. In terms of shot composition, angles, and camera movements, the movie is pretty standard in that regard. The effects weren't the best at times, but surprisingly not as bad as I was expecting them to be. Specifically when it came to the deaths, they looked good, and the physical acting by the actors when they're getting controlled by the Puppet Man was convincing. But in terms of the other supernatural elements is where they started to look a little questionable. Tonally, the concept alone is dark, especially since the horror elements involve taking over a person's body and making them harm themselves and or kill themselves. Obviously that subject matter is quite dark, so trigger warning. The movie is around 90 minutes, but the movie felt way longer than it actually was. I feel the horror elements are spaced out unevenly and I just wanted maybe 2 to 3 more moments of the Puppet Man possessing people. The life lesson that I learned after watching The Puppet Man was that everybody should be chained to their bed before they go to sleep. Just in case. Overall, yeah, the movie was pretty bad. Again, intriguing concept, poor execution. I will say that the movie was entertaining when the horror elements were present. The movie is fun bad, which is better than bad bad or boring bad. I'm gonna have to give The Puppet Man a 5 out of 10. Surprisingly. We are now entering spoiler territory. If you haven't seen The Puppet Man, watch it, then come back to the video, or if you simply don't care about spoilers, keep on watching. In this portion of the video, I break down the movie, go more in depth with my likes and dislikes, as well as my favorite scene, favorite kill, and least favorite kill. Again, we are now entering spoiler territory. The opening of the movie starts off with a woman making dinner for her husband and young daughter. Arriving home early from work, her husband walks into the kitchen wielding a knife, tells her to run, seeming to not be in control of his body, then proceeding to stab her in the chest and hit her over the head with a pan. She tries to crawl away until the husband comes back telling her that it's not him, then proceeding to stab her again but in the stomach, killing her. This opening was pretty effective, perfectly set the tone, and gave the audience a general idea of what the main conflict and or gimmick of the movie would be. Our main character, Michael, is listening to a true crime podcast about the Puppet Man, where a man kills his wife seeming to not be in control of his own body. Charlie, her roommate, asks if she's okay, when it's then revealed that the Puppet Man was her father and her mother was the one that was killed in the opening. Michael is bold as hell listening to that true crime podcast about the murder of her mother, basically making herself relive her own trauma. She is different. The next day, Michael and Charlie meet up with their friends on campus. While Michael is in class, she seems to not fully be there, thinking about her father who will be executed soon. That night, while Michael's sleeping, she has a nightmare reliving the trauma of her witnessing her father murder her mother while hiding away in a secret room. Charlie catches Michael sleepwalking and finds her in the dorm hallway, writing a symbol on the wall in blood. The next day, having returned back to her dorm after hanging out with her friends, she snoops through her roommate's laptop, finding a folder with a bunch of recordings of her sleepwalking and doing weird shit in her sleep, until her roommate returns to the dorm and catches her snooping. They shrug it off and promise to keep all of this a secret. Michael and her friends meet on the rooftop, drinking and smoking until Michael's sleepwalking gets mentioned, which results in an argument between Michael and Charlie. While Michael is about to head back to her dorm, all of a sudden Charlie can't move and is asking for her friend's help, but none of them believe her, until she starts walking backwards against her will and falls off the roof of the dorm building, landing on the concrete below, killing her. The whole sleepwalking situation was quite strange. She seriously needs to get that shit checked out. Like, are we just supposed to ignore the fact that Michael is writing on the wall with her own blood? Okay. Charlie's death fully caught me off guard. I was not expecting her to die, let alone being the first one to die out of this friend group. Very surprising indeed. Michael and her friends are at the police station after the incident with Charlie. Michael is being interrogated by a detective, feeling guilty for Charlie's death. Danny, Glenn, and Joe are at their local diner, grieving the loss of their friend. Danny tries to call Michael, but she doesn't pick up, so he heads to her dorm to check on her. Danny arrives at Michael's dorm room, but she doesn't answer the door, so he decides to stay outside of her dorm room. He falls asleep, but wakes up to her dorm room door opened and her not being in there. Danny goes to look for her, but sees the symbol she drew earlier in blood leading to the stairwell. He rushes to the roof and sees Michael sleepwalking on the edge of the building, about to fall, but he saves her at the last second, which wakes her up. Somebody needs to chain her to her bed before she goes to sleep to prevent her from doing this crazy sleepwalking shit and accidentally killing someone and or killing herself. They go back to her dorm room and go through Charlie's laptop, watching the videos that she recorded of Michael sleepwalking, trying to figure out what the symbol she keeps drawing in her sleep means, but can't figure it out. The next day, Michael and her friends head to a psychic that Charlie recommended before she died to get answers to what the is going on. They arrive at the psychic's house and meet with her. Ruby recommends Michael wait in the other room while she talks to the others. After talking with them privately, she then lets Michael into the room. Not too long after, the puppet man possesses Ruby and makes her write the message, "I killed Charlie," and shows it to the group of friends. They don't believe that she was being controlled by the puppet man. Michael asks him who killed Charlie. Then he makes Ruby write another message saying that Michael herself was the one who killed Charlie, which freaks her the out. Later that night, Glenn is weightlifting while Joe is doing further research on what's going on with Michael in the library, until they both get controlled by the puppet man who make them kill themselves. Joe by setting her head on fire, melting her face off, and Glenn by dropping a heavy weight on his head, caving his face in. The next day, Michael and Danny head to the prison where her dad is being held. She talks to him and asks what and why these events are happening, where he then reveals that she's the one that made him kill her mom. Her voice was in his head telling him to do so, and that she was born with this curse. Both Michael and Danny are being interrogated at the police station for the sudden deaths of both Glenn and Joe that happened the previous night, who are mainly suspecting Michael of being the cause. She decides that she doesn't want to be interrogated anymore, gets up and leaves, locking both Danny and the detective in the interrogation room, said detective seeming to be frozen in place. The whole interrogation scene where Michael just gets up and leaves was so funny to me. She was just like, you know what? I'm in control. Michael tries to kill herself to get rid of the curse, but the puppet man won't let her. She tries walking into incoming traffic, all of the cars stopping, then tries jumping off a bridge into the water, but nope. Danny and Michael head to the psychic's house, once again asking for help and answers. While on the road, Michael tells Danny to stop the car, but he doesn't. The puppet man then takes over Michael and Danny's body, making Danny stop the car. The puppet man in Michael's body asks Danny what Ruby gave to him. He doesn't say, which results in the puppet man making him break his finger. The puppet man asks again what she gave him, but he just tells him that she gave them their money back. The puppet man then makes Danny show him the bills and what was written on them, which say to keep Michael away from people, that she'll contact him soon and that she can't know that he knows. The puppet man then makes Danny repeatedly bash his head against the steering wheel, killing him. I'm sorry, but just thinking about the bridge scene still has me dying. But I just don't really understand why the Puppet Man didn't just kill the psychic while both Michael and Danny were at her house. The Puppet Man clearly knew that something secretive was going on, enough for him to ask what Ruby gave to Danny, so why not just possess one of them in that very moment and kill two birds with one stone? Maybe I'm just better at his job than he is. Michael then flees the scene drenched in blood, walking to the nearest police station, confessing to the murder of her boyfriend and her friends, asking the police officer to kill her. He draws his gun, but it's too late. Puppet Man takes over the officer's body and makes him himself. The gunshot draws the attention of the other officers at the station, who pull their guns out on her. She asks them to kill her. Then once again, it doesn't go as planned and the police officers all shoot each other simultaneously, leaving her standing. The detective from earlier sneaks up on Michael and shoots her with a tranquilizer. The detective takes her unconscious body back to the psychic's house, where they then come to the conclusion that they have to trick the trickster to remove him from Michael's body. The next day, Ruby takes Michael to her father's execution. The Puppet Man takes over her father's body and the person administering the lethal injection, having him think he has the upper hand by making him focus on Michael, which lets the Puppet Man's guard down. The person administering the lethal injection gains back control of their body and injects the father, killing him. Both Ruby and Michael are relieved that their plan actually worked, but the movie ends on a menacing note, showing to the audience that the Puppet Man is still in Michael's body. Then the movie ends. I wasn't fully understanding the lore they were setting up and how the Puppet Man himself works. Sometimes he'd possess one person and sometimes he'd possess multiple at the same time. Sometimes he'd only take over the body of someone near Michael, and sometimes he'd possess someone nowhere near Michael. Even though in the movie they were making it out to seem like the Puppet Man could only take over people's bodies in Michael's vicinity. I also wasn't a fan of the ending. I love a bleak ending, but the whole lethal injection was so underwhelming. The movie was making it out to seem like the ending would be extraordinary, but no, it was very simple and straightforward. The bridge scene absolutely killed me. I had to rewind it so many times to make sure I wasn't seeing shit because it looked so wacky. I just had to. I had to laugh. The effects during the deaths in the movie were actually pretty good, sometimes a little questionable, but not bad at all. I just wanted more fun and creative deaths, especially with a concept like this, and just more deaths in general. When it comes to my favorite scene, it's actually hard for me to pick one because there isn't really a scene in the movie that I liked or loved, besides maybe one scene, but it's a death, and I try not to pick deaths as my favorite scenes and only keep them specifically in the kill section. But in this case, I'ma have to choose a kills as my favorite scene. So, my favorite scene would have to be the lead up to both Joe and Glenn's deaths. It was an inconsistency when it came to the lore and how the Puppet Man worked, but I found these scenes to be quite suspenseful and very anxiety inducing. My least favorite scene would have to be the ending, not the fact that the Puppet Man was still in Michael's body. I like that aspect, but the whole lethal injection scene was just underwhelming and disappointing. I wish the whole lethal injection scene was cut out and replaced with something else. When it comes to my favorite kill, I'm stuck between both Joe and Glenn's deaths because I found their deaths to be the most effective, but I'd say my favorite kill would have to be Joe's, her body getting controlled into burning herself alive. It was so drawn out, slow, and sadistic. In some shots, you could tell that the fire was CGI, but it didn't really take me out of the movie. The fire reflecting in her eyes and just the overall attention to detail was quite disturbing as well. Loved it, of course. My least favorite kill would have to be Michael's dad getting the lethal injection. I already said multiple times throughout the video why I wasn't a fan of it, so you get the idea. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos from me, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. Alright, horror movie lovers, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out.